What if your god was a spider who spun stories instead of webs, or a goddess who devoured filth as a sacred ritual, or a deity who drank cacao laced with blood in the middle of the jungle? These aren't myths invented for movies, these are real gods that were once worshipped across continents. While most mythology videos focus on familiar names like Zeus, Odin, or Ra, today we're diving into the strange, the overlooked, and the beautifully bizarre. These are the gods you were never taught about, each tied to unique rituals, odd offerings, and ancient cultures from Africa to Asia. Let's start with Anansi, the spider god of stories and trickery. Originating with the Akan people of Ghana, Anansi is one of the most famous trickster gods in West African tradition. He takes the form of a spider, or sometimes a man with spider traits. But what makes Anansi legendary isn't his power, it's his wit. He once captured wild animals and mischievous spirits to win the right to tell all stories. He outsmarted the sky god Baiame by completing impossible tasks like capturing hornets in a gourd and tying a jaguar with vines. Anansi was central to oral tradition, and his stories crossed the Atlantic during the slave trade, evolving into folklore in the Caribbean and American South. In some ceremonies, people offered him yams, honey, or sweet drinks while telling tales in his honor, because you can't invoke Anansi without a story or a snack. Next, we travel to the Aztec Empire to meet Tlazolteotl, one of the most contradictory goddesses in mythology. She was both the goddess of fertility and of filth, the eater of sin. Her name translates to the Filth-Eater, and that's exactly what she did. Tlazolteotl ruled over confession, forgiveness, and spiritual purification. In ancient rituals, people would confess their deepest sins to her, and symbolically, she would consume them, freeing them of spiritual corruption. In Aztec codices, she is sometimes depicted consuming excrement, a metaphor for digesting human impurity. Her followers believed that after confession, one's sins would be erased completely. Offerings to her included tamales, copal incense, and bloodletting rituals, often performed in the dark corners of temples before important life transitions. Sin-eating may sound strange, but to the Aztecs, it was salvation.
Now let's cross to Australia and meet Bayami, the Sky Father in Aboriginal mythology.
While many creator gods are worshipped through temples or statues, Bayami is different. To the Wiradjuri and Kamilaroi people, he created rivers, mountains, animals, and the laws that governed life. But here's the twist. No one was allowed to look directly at his face. His presence was so sacred that his image could only be depicted at specific sites, often carved into high rock surfaces. These places were considered off-limits to women and uninitiated men. Rituals tied to Bayami involved leaving food, water, and fire at sacred sites, not for humans, but as offerings to the dreaming ancestors. These weren't communal feasts, they were spiritual transactions with the land itself. In his world, nature wasn't just scenery, it was alive, governed by sacred laws that continue to shape indigenous Australian identity today. Now to the jungles of Mesoamerica, where we find one of the strangest and least known goddesses, Ixtab, the Mayan goddess of ritual suicide. Unlike most societies that condemned suicide, the ancient Maya believed that those who died by certain types of suicide, especially hanging, were granted passage to paradise. Ixtab was their divine escort, depicted with a noose around her neck and serene expression. She welcomed warriors, women who died in childbirth, and ritual suicides into a lush afterlife filled with flowers, birds, and endless feasts. Her realm was depicted as a celestial garden, a reward for noble suffering. Offerings in her honor included cacao, maize beer, chili, and tamales, often placed near trees or cenotes, sacred sinkholes believed to connect to the underworld. The rituals were intense, but to the Maya, Ixtab wasn't a symbol of death. She was a guide to divine peace.
Next up, Agni, the Vedic fire god of India.
In modern Hinduism, you might know Ganesha, Shiva, or Vishnu, but in early Vedic texts, Agni was the mouth of the gods. Everything offered into the fire, rice, butter, herbs, was consumed by Agni and passed to the other deities. He didn't just represent fire, he was fire. In every major ritual, weddings, funerals, daily prayers, Agni had to be present. He symbolized transformation, taking physical offerings and turning them into spiritual nourishment. Ancient hymns described him as riding flames like a chariot, his tongue lapping up clarified butter. Even today, Agni is invoked during sacred ceremonies with mantras, ghee, and fragrant wood, as flames dance to the rhythm of ancient chants. And finally, let's sweeten things with one of the most beloved gods in mythology, Ganesha, the elephant-headed remover of obstacles, and possibly the biggest sweet tooth in the cosmos. What makes Ganesha unusual isn't just his appearance, but his appetite. He's often shown holding a modak, a sweet dumpling made of rice flour, jaggery, and coconut. During the festival Ganesha, millions of people offer modaks and ladus to his idol. One myth says he once ate so many sweets that his belly burst, and when the moon laughed at him, he cursed the moon to disappear. He rides a tiny mouse, wears a broken tusk, and loves offering so much that temples overflow with sweets in his name. He is divine and adorable, wise and ridiculous, a symbol of how gods can be both powerful and playful. So what do all these strange gods have in common? They're proof that mythology is weirder, deeper, and more imaginative than most people realize. They reveal how different cultures process sin, storytelling, death, fire, and even dessert. The gods we've forgotten often tell us the most about who we were and who we still are. So what does it all mean? When we strip away the familiarity of modern religious archetypes, lightning gods, kings of heaven, gods of war, we uncover a deeper truth. Human beings have always imagined the divine in wildly creative, beautifully bizarre ways. Not every god ruled over thunder or oceans. Some told stories, some punished pride, some ate filth, and some offered safe passage to those who suffered. Take Anansi, the trickster spider who spun the web of all stories, reminding us that cleverness could be sacred, or Tlazolteotl, who purified sinners not by smiting them, but by symbolically consuming their filth and freeing them from guilt. Think of Bayami, who forbade his followers from ever looking at him directly, or Ixtab, who turned death by suicide into a noble gateway to divine reward. From Agni, who ate fire as an act of communion, to Ganesha, who devoured sweets and still had time to curse the moon. These gods were weird, but they were also deeply human. They reflected the fears, values, and imaginations of the people who believed in them. Every god had a purpose: to explain, to comfort, to punish, or to entertain. And often, they were tied to real food, real rituals, and real places. Things people could see, touch, smell, taste. A dumpling offered to a statue, a cornmeal cake left by a tree, or honey poured into fire wasn't just a cultural act. It was a bridge between the human and the divine. If this video shows anything, it's that mythology isn't dead. It's evolving, and the gods, especially the strange ones, still have stories left to tell. So, which of these gods surprised you the most? Would you eat cacao with Ixtab, trick your way through life like Anansi, offer fire to Agni, or make a plate of sweets for Ganesha? This is the third video in our mythology food history series. If you haven't yet, check out Feasts of the Gods and Where the Gods Walked right after this. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, even the strangest gods were sacred to someone. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more deep dives into the world's incredible histories.